from an inside of the body's performer point of view.
Once we understood that we can trigger those movement patterns, we focused all our study on teaching people how to do that.
While you are intensely in the emotion, in the aggression, you're able to dial it down, dial it up.
And what we did in PEM is we looked at that black box. We tried to find out what's happening in the body. What is going on that then gives this authentic reactions. They can go out and be completely neutral in seconds.
Welcome back to Flavor part of dailyovation.com. I'm Joe Winger. Today we're continuing our conversation, part of the series, with Stefan Perdekamp and Sarah Victoria from the Perdekamp Emotional Method, PEM. Let's get back into the conversation. I'm hearing you use words like humane and health, and where that takes me is to something in your teachings, which is what is it? It's called safe access, I believe. Is that the correct phrase?
Yes.
What does that look like in the practice of acting, and how do we access it? How does PEM work with that idea? Tell us more about the safe access.
So to understand safe access, I want to make a quick detour to the psychological methods. So there is a connection between psyche and emotion. But unlike psychological approaches or psychology in general, we do not think that emotion is an entity of the psyche. It's an entity of the physical movement system that then expresses and influences the psyche. So our ability to move is the ability to act, to plan, becomes self-awareness, and the psyche then builds on top of that. So we feel safe and strong when we're young and able to move. And the older we get, the more fragile we get, more insecure, because the psyche knows, oh, if something happens, I can't do those movements, right? So the psychological acting methods, they use the mind to imagine, to remember situations, to then go strongly into that memory, which and this conviction of the mind to be in a situation then triggers a physical reaction, which is authentic. So basically, the memory of a situation or the imagination of a situation then makes the body create the emotions appropriate for that situation. And this reaction, that's like a black box. We don't know what that is. So the mind does some work. We can control that. I can, try to remember again or imagine again. But what is triggered, we don't know. And what we did in PEM is we looked at that black box and tried to find out what's happening in the body. What is going on that then gives this authentic reactions. And what we found is that in our nervous system, there are distinct locations that we call triggers, which if activated, create complex movement patterns through the whole body. And those movement patterns are emotions. Our subconscious way of dealing with the world is by finding the appropriate movement to a situation. So if there's an enemy that is too big, I switch to my fear movement and I run as fast as I can to get away from danger. If I'm hungry and there's some berries in the bush and I have to get, with my hands through the thorns, I sort of employ my lust and aggression patterns and force my hand through the pain to get those wonderful berries. Yeah, so that all operates on the physical level. Once we understood that we can trigger those movement patterns, we focused all our study on teaching people how to do that. So there's sensitivity training to locate small electrical movements in the body. And then there are exercises that take that movement pattern and fill it into bigger and bigger movement, which means that the emotions get more and more intense. Yeah. And the safe part is that because it's not triggered in the mind, so your idea of what's happening is not that the house is burning. Your idea in your mind, what's happening is, oh, this is an acting class. He told me to switch on this and this pattern. I did that, made me run. I ran a lot. Then he said, stop. So I stopped. Because the mind is still in the acting class. It's not in the burning house. And then there are exercises to release those emotions. The body has certain mechanisms to let go of movement patterns. And if people go through these exercises, then they're completely calm. No matter how intense or brutal they have performed before, they can go out and be completely neutral in seconds. Yeah.
That sounds that sounds like a magic trick almost. I mean,
it's a biological awareness. So I know, we can't imagine it because we haven't looked into the subconscious part of the body. People don't, we know, for example, from biology that electricity operates the body, but we have never believed that we could actually take control over that electricity. We think, that there's so small currents, how could we? But we've found ways to train people to do that. So the effect looks magical, but it's actually very technical and very, very calm, very organized.
From an inside of the body's performer point of view, how it feels is you've got this incredible freedom in the brain, in the mind. So usually, we think like we are authentic when we're psychologically and physically in a situation. We need to be psychologically in a situation, otherwise it's not authentic. And here, the new thing about this is you can totally be authentic, but you don't have to be psychologically go there. And now you've got all this space free in the mind, and it is incredible how you're able, while you are intensely in the emotion, in the aggression, you're able to dial it down, dial it up as a performer, as whatever the scene requires. You're completely aware of not overstepping your mark or what your actions are. You don't actually play the emotion. You have the emotion in the body because you've trained it already. Yeah, so you don't even focus on the emotion. And it's in this incredible freedom that people can't imagine if you actually haven't tried it, because it feels so different. And so, yeah, it feels, from the outside like a magic trick, but it is very logical, actually, those movement patterns that are running in the body.
I'm going to try a second time then and say, instead of a magic trick, it's like a watch or a clock, because we see the face of it on the outside, but behind that is all the gears and mechanisms to make it work.
Yeah. So the clock is a brilliant example because the Clockmaker works with these incredibly fine instruments with glasses to be able to understand the mechanics. And the normal users, they wouldn't know what to do with it. They don't get in there. They don't know how to operate it.